Welcome to another episode of Talk to Tatiana. This is Tatiana Sawyer, and today I have an interesting person. I'm not going to tell you a lot about his profession, but we'll talk about this in a minute. But Ralf Heyer, welcome to the show.
Hi, Tatiana. Thank you for having me. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure. So with your interview, we're actually starting a series of interviews, and what we're talking about today is how to piss off your accountant. And so we're talking about things that clients do sometimes intentionally, sometimes not, and stuff that absolutely drives us as accountants bananas. And so what is your first tip for us? What is that first thing that drives you absolutely nuts?
So that's super easy. And I can go on for hours on this topic. But the one thing that comes up initially is when you have a client who sends you 20 or 30 different JPEGs or pictures of their 1099 year-end tax document from their investment bank. It's just brutal. It's just awful. And then to top it all off, they then send it not in order, but they send you the odd ones first and then the even ones. And we have to compile all this information and make sure that it's all in order. And that's if you have a good camera and nothing is blurry. That's just insane to me when they can just log on and download it and send it out to us, right? So, but that what I would say is my number one pet peeve.
So let's talk this through this a little bit. So just so that people understand, people who are not familiar with necessarily this particular topic, what are the 1099s that you're talking about? Like, just explain it in layman terms, that people who are listening can understand.
So and this doesn't have to be just for 1099s. This could be any tax document, right? This could be their W-2s, their mortgage interest statement, but they send you everything in JPEGs and it's just brutal. But the 1099 in and of itself is if you have an investment account like with TD Ameritrade or Wells Fargo or whatever the case might be that you buy and sell stocks, Robinhood, super popular. And they send you this 1099 that has a summary of all the transactions that you've done, right? They include things, and again, not to get into the details, but include things like dividends, interest, the purchase and sale of stocks. So that would be a 1099, and all that information is just so critical to preparing your tax return. Some people say, I didn't get one this year. Well, did you have money in there? Yes. Okay. Well, chances are you receive some sort of payout, like a dividend or interest, or I didn't sell anything. But yeah, the 1099 is super important for us to prepare your return.
I mean, I'm sure you've experienced the same, but I love how people say, "Oh, that account is like I didn't make any money." Well, great, but you still probably have gotten some dividends that were invested, like some interest.
Right. Or I didn't sell any of my stock. Well, maybe you didn't, but your autopilot advisor did, and there is a slew of transactions that have to be reported. So it's always a good time. The one that we get often also is with those 1099s, to stay in topic, is when they think they have one, but they're not sure, and then we pull the actual transcript from the IRS, and it says something like Apex, and they're like, Apex, I don't know a company named Apex, or or Pershing, I don't know what this company is this fraud? And they start freaking out, and it turns out that Citibank uses, for example, Apex or Pershing or whatever it is that they use as their platform, right? But the taxpayer doesn't even have an idea of who these people are. So that's kind of fun too, right?
Yeah. And you know what? I don't know about you, because we haven't really talked in terms of your firm versus my firm. I personally never used organizers because I feel that they're useless. People like just what you've just described, they see Apex. What the hell is Apex? I have no idea, but that can be a clearinghouse for, I don't know, TD Ameritrade or National Financial something. You know what I mean?
Right. Right. No, we do. So my thinking behind the organizers, it's almost like a marketing plot, right? To remind clients, hey, we're still going to do your taxes. Don't forget about us. Here's our information. But I can't tell you enough how many times people come with a sealed organizer and they're like, hey, I got this. Should I open it? And I'm like, yes. Or I get emails and they're like, hey, Ralph, what information do you need from me? So I said, hey, I'll send you the organizer, no problem. And they just print it out and come with it, and it's completely blank. And, it's like, look, it's there to help you as a guide. Okay, you don't have to complete it, but, it helps me understand your tax situation. So, I had a client once, and our organizer is not that complex, but he came in and said, well, if I complete this, it's almost like I'm doing your job. And I'm like, no, it's not like you're doing my job. My job is a lot more complex. It does help me help you. But yeah, no, the organizers are insane. Now what we switched is now, because we do about 1,000 returns now. So imagine sending out 1,000, documents. It's not cost effective. So now we have it on if the client wants it, then, we email it to them. And if they want us to mail it to them, then we do that as well. But, we no longer mass mail them out because everybody would come, with them sealed and here, thanks, but no thanks. So.
Yeah, I totally understand that. I personally so I don't, I'm a virtual firm. We don't do any paper stuff at all. So If you want paper, you have to just scan it in a way that we can process it. And, sometimes for very special clients, we organize it ourselves, certainly. But organizers to me have been useless just because I've worked at a CPA firm where they've been mailing out stacks and stacks of organizers. And a lot of people, just like you said, they would just bring them unopened, or they would not fill them out and just attach a bunch of forms. Very few people actually would fill in their donations or anything like that.
Right.
And so it's really drove me a little crazy, even when I was working for somebody else, And
Agreed.
So here it's like,
Agreed.
Very interesting. And so, with the 1099 forms, I just wanted to expand a little bit on it so that, people who are listening, who are not accountants, can understand kind of the reasons behind we ask for what we ask for, right? And so talk a little bit about kind of like the scanning even and odd pages, not sending all of the pages. Talk a little bit about why it's important and, why we care.
Yeah, 100%. So there might be information on those 1099s that you think are not important. Or things that you might not understand, and rightfully so, right? When I see my doctor and they do my annual checkup, I have no idea what any of that stuff is. I rely on them as professionals to tell me, hey, you have high blood pressure, which I don't, or your cholesterol is high, which it isn't. But I would have no idea. If I'd have to Google everything, I think I'd probably have 3 months to live, right? Based on Google, Dr. Google, right? So, but the same thing goes with these 1099s and with any type of form, right? It's important definitely to ideally, it would be to download them from the clearinghouse, such as TD Ameritrade or whatever the case might be, and save them to a PDF, and then either email them or upload them to the portal that your accountant uses, right? And there's several reasons for that, right? We've done it both ways, where once we get the actual PDF, depending on the type of transactions, we either scan them through a system or a software like Gruntworks. I don't know if you've ever heard of that, Tatiana. Yeah. Sure you have, which they scan all this information and they populate it for us in like an Excel type of worksheet, and then we can upload that to our tax software. Now, all the entire process takes anywhere between maybe 5 to 20 minutes, depending on the amount of transactions. But this is so helpful because now we can actually review the work instead of doing the actual data entry, right? So something that before would take our team maybe an hour to enter, now we're just taking 20 or 30 minutes to review, right? So it'll save your number one, your staff. Obviously, from your accounting perspective. It saves my staff time, which in turn saves my clients and would save your clients or any clients, I think, money. And it would help the preparer avoid any type of errors, right? Which is really what you want. You want your returns to be spot on the first time. So for sure, the best thing, download the PDF, upload or email them to your preparer so that they can either scan them, to that particular software and review the work properly, or be able to enter it manually, whichever the case might be. But that 1099 holds so much information. Like, for example, sometimes you don't know that you bought some sort of stock abroad and you've paid foreign taxes on it. And you get credit for those foreign taxes that you've paid. But if we don't have that proper documentation, we don't know and we can't put it, and you can lose on tax deductions. So super critical, super important is the download of the PDF. Now, second best would be to scan them. And those are pretty good. I think the OCR technology, right? I don't know what OCR stands for. Don't.
Optical character recognition.
There you go. Thank you. Right. It's gotten much better where even good scanned copies, they're able to identify it, right? And we're able to still process it. So that would be the second best option, right? I even want to say maybe the third best option is then to mail them, right? Like to us, right? Because so that way we can scan it if you don't have a scanner. But taking those pictures, oh my goodness, that's just brutal, right? So if anybody out there who's done this to their accountants, you guys should send them an I'm sorry letter with like a $50 gift card from Starbucks, and do better next year, right? You will make your accountant's day for sure. That would bring a smile to a lot of people.
I would even go for like hard liquor at this point.
That would be better. Yes, 100%.
Because would you agree that these types of behaviors by clients absolutely drive us to drink? At least they drive me to drink.
Yes, for sure. Like, one of our kids know when it's tax season, not just because we're working long hours, because they see our liquor supply dwindle down, right? So I'm kidding, but no, definitely they do drive us to drink. It's just insane. And like I said, it's not just those 1099s, but sometimes when you have clients take pictures of their W-2s and just send them to your text, like I have not a lot of my clients have my personal cell phone, right? Because I have a life outside of accounting. I love my family.
Really?
I like to spend, yes, believe it or not, right? It's not 24/7. And, but we do have like a text number where all of our clients can send us text messages, and I get them on my phone. My team gets it on their computer, right? It's excellent. It's actually called Texcellent, but there's plenty of them out there. And I have clients that even take pictures of the W-2 and send this to this Texcellent app. And I'm like, don't send it. It's got your W-2. It's got your personal information. You don't want to be sending, whether it's 1099 information, W-2s, through any type of text messaging app. I would even go as far as saying don't send it via email, right? Like now portals with OTPs and all that stuff is like, it's where we're headed as a profession. So most accountants at least are trying to head that direction now, at least the ones that I know and that I've spoken to, right? It's just, I can't tell you how many times I've had clients call me that somebody broke into their email and there's fraud in their email, not to send any documents there. So, can you imagine had we sent a copy of their tax return to their email without some password protection, or if they didn't have access to their portal online without an OTP or a password, right? I mean, it would be chaos. But yes, don't send pictures to your accountant. That's the bottom line there.
Another thing that you brought up about the portals, and when they first came out, so this is when I was actually just starting my tax career, meaning that I've started as a bookkeeper many years ago. Actually, it's going to be 18 years this year, right? So I was a bookkeeper first, but I started as a bookkeeper, but then I went into tax and accounting in about 2009 or 10, and then I actually remember that when I first started back then, we were just like, I think the second year I worked for let me rephrase, I slaved for the CPA firm. I I remember they started incorporating the portals and OCR and all of that. This is when when this just was becoming hot thing, right? Because we were just holding on to like originals and stuff like that. And I remember that people were pushing back on portals. They still push back on portals. Now they kind of understand a little bit better, in a sense that they understand kind of, cybersecurity and personal information. But explain kind of why, so that I don't keep talking, but you can actually explain it, why it's so important for us to send you information and to exchange information, sensitive information through a portal as opposed to an email or a text message.
100%. I remember back then too, Tatiana, we used Lacert back in the day, and Lacert had this awesome document management system. It was called Lacert DMS. It was phenomenal. It was great. And we jumped right on it. We had it for years. And then, like everything that Intuit does, they pulled it out and they brought something else in, and it was awful, right? So, but like you, we've been in the, incorporating like a document management system in our practice. I remember when I started working as well, we used to have cabinets, like a room filled with just cabinets of client folders and files. Yeah. And God forbid somebody took out that file and forgot to put it back. Oh my goodness. It was like 20 minutes going around trying to find out who has it, right? If there wasn't a sign out and a sign in log, right? But those days are gone, right? And this is part of the importance of having a portal or a document management system so that the clients can access as well, right? So now we have the same thing. And like you said, you're absolutely 100% right, right? It's like, I think now because of the pandemic, more people are more comfortable in accessing their information online, as opposed to having a face-to-face conversation with their accountant, right? Long are the days where you needed a desk, a secretary, an office. Back then having an office in a Regis was like, oh, you're not a real accountant. You're not really in business. No, those days are gone. My wife works directly from home, and she is an accountant. She's an enrolled agent as well, and she has her own practice, 100% virtual. All right. So, but what?
So hold on a second. Wait a second. Are you competing with your wife?
No. We have. So we have zip code boundaries, right? She's in Coconut Grove and I'm in Coral Gables. So we make sure that our SEO is very strict as far as SEO is concerned. But she's really great with foreign clients, right? So I not, for my foreign clients out there who are your listeners, I love you all, but it's really not my cup of tea, right? So I refer those out to my wife, and she handles them really, really well. So we work the same, but different types of clienteles. But so we started pushing, the whole portal. Number one, it's easier for the client to access their information. How many times don't we get emails from clients? Hey, I need a copy of my 1040. I'm buying a house. I need it right away. Maybe the email doesn't get on, doesn't go answered for a day or two, but they need, and obviously we've already given them a copy, but they just misplaced it, right? So, there's that as well, right? You've been given copies, whether digitally or physically, and you have no idea where they are. By having a portal, it's all centralized. Sure, you can download copies of it, but if you need it again, you know exactly where to find it, right? Number two, it shows all your what I call the source documents, which include your W-2s, your 1099s, all the information that was issued to the accountant. You have access to it as well. So again, if you're buying a house and you need copies of your W-2s and you can't remember your ADP password or your employee portal password, whatever the case might be, you can go in there and download it, right? Which is phenomenal. Number three, and probably most important, is hands down security. Yeah. I'll give you a story. I had we also have a payroll company that we process payroll for, right? And but we had our tax and accounting payroll client send us an email, and they said, "Hey, Ralf, for the next payroll, change my direct deposit to ABC, right? And they gave us
I
a new
already
routing
I
number.
already see where this is going. Go
Yeah,
on.
yeah. And they gave us a new routing number and a new account number. And this particular client is a little older in age, very successful. They were hesitant in using the portal, but about 2 weeks prior to that, they had started using the portal, and we're like, it's kind of strange that they're sending this communication via email. So we have, anytime that there's a change, part of our procedure is to get a verbal confirmation from them. So we call them up and we're like, hey, Mr. and Mrs. So and so, we got this email from you. Are you sure you want us to change this? Because, we've been doing this account for like 5 years and there's never been any changes. And they're like, wait a minute, that wasn't us. And we're like, okay, well, now we got a bigger problem because it came from your email and they wrote exactly like you write. So it happened. This happened twice, and it happens to be older professionals, and not to bash AOL, but they were both AOL accounts. So
Wow.
I don't know if there's some specific targeting out there. So the good thing is we were able to catch it because of two things. Three things. One, because we're awesome, right? But two, because we have a process in place where we can, get a verbal confirmation. And three, because about 2 weeks prior to that, they started using the portal to do all communication, even email communication. So we found it strange that they didn't go through the portal, right? So security is key for sure, right? Especially now with AI, which is another topic that we can go on for hours. Now they can record your voice, right? Like there's been the artificial intelligence now can, if you have a podcast or if you're on podcasts on social media, they can actually take recordings of your voice. It's even fooled the bank, people that you love, those. So, I mean, it's just insane. So can you imagine if somebody sends this email, somehow we give them a call back or they say, hey, we changed our number. I mean, who knows? Like this could go south so many ways. Now, the portals aren't obviously 100% proof, right? I think, these scammers are always like 10 steps ahead of us.
Yeah.
But you're going to make them jump through a lot more hurdles than if it were just your email, if it were just via text, right? Not only that, most portals require two forms of authentication or three, right? Number one, you have to put in your email, then you have to put in a password, and then you have to do an OTP, a one-time password, right? So you get text message on your phone and you have to put it in there. So, or text message to your email, then you have to put it in there, right? So that's a lot of information for them to have to go through in order to obtain your, maybe if you're, the Donald Trumps of the world, yeah, it might make sense, but I'm sure their security is to like another level, right? But portals for sure is the way to go.
Awesome. Thanks so much for sharing that. Awesome.
Sure.
And tell us a little bit about what your sweet spot is in your business, so that if people are listening and they're, they can reach out to you and stuff.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Tatiana. So we're located in Miami, Florida. And I focus predominantly on service-oriented professionals. So mostly dentists, mostly doctors, mostly attorneys, right? I want to say those three professions, it's a 40-20-20 split. And then I have a 20% of a little bit of everything else, right? Besides the tax and accounting, one of my other soft spots, I guess, is for the profession itself. So like you, Tatiana, I love talking to other individuals, but I also like to talk to accountants. And I like to open their experience to potential outsourcing. Right. That's kind of like my thing right now. It's we've been outsourcing for I think 10 years now. As I started as a one-person individual, we have 5 people now here in the U.S. and we have 5 people in India that we work with. Right. That's why for me, security is so important. Well, it doesn't matter if you outsource to India or to your state above or your state next to you or within the U.S. It doesn't matter. Your security protocols have to be 10 times more than if you were just working by yourself and didn't have any other types of employees, right? But that's what I like to focus on. Those two things. That's my bread and butter right now.
Awesome. Okay. Thanks so much for sharing. Thanks so much for agreeing to come on and share some of these how to piss off your accountant tips. I hope it was useful for people to listen in. I certainly enjoyed it. It's certainly one of the things that I think about. And thanks so much. And if you could go back in time, just one last question that I typically ask all of my guests. If you could go back in time and tell your younger self one thing, what would that be?
Don't do it. No, just kidding. I would tell myself to get married sooner. Right. I love my wife. I've been with her for 18 years, 19 years now. And I would have definitely gotten married much sooner. For me, it grounded me. It gave me my partner that I can bounce ideas off. And it gave me a financial sense of, like I had somebody to back me up, right? If I couldn't, I knew that I wasn't alone, that I had somebody to help me pick me up. So I would say for sure, finding the right individual to spend hopefully the rest of your life, or at least your foreseeable future, would help ground you in any business idea, as long as obviously you guys see eye to eye, right? To me, that if I can go back, I would definitely do that. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks so much for sharing it. All right, Ralf, you've been a great guest. Thanks so much for giving us a little bit of your time and insight into your life and business. And for everybody else who's listening, next week we'll be back with another episode of Talk to Tatiana, where we will again cover the topic of how to piss off your accountant. And I'll see everybody soon.